Okay, thank you for coming to this ANSYS tutorial. Today I'll be going over modeling basic geometry in ANSYS, so basically like the CAD part of ANSYS. So creating shapes and lines and using sections and things like that. So this is almost all going to be in the modeling section, or the modeling menu of ANSYS. So first we're going to start with creating shapes. So in the other tutorials I went over using key points and lines, so I'm not going to go over very much of that. In the tutorial about link elements, we talked about key points and lines. Basically, you're creating a key point in the active coordinate system. You type in a coordinate in 3D space, the x, y, and z coordinates of your key point, and create key points that represent that you can link to make lines. So if you want to make a Z-shaped beam, you need 4 key points, and then you use your create lines down here, lines and straight lines. And then it's going to tell me how many key points, but you click 2 key points to make a line between them, and that basically, basic geometry of creating lines. You can use sections to extrude a cross-sectional shape along those lines, and that was covered in other videos. So mostly, but if you're interested in it, creating lines here, you can do arcs or splines. An arc is obviously a section of a circle. But a spline is basically just a curve that fits multiple key points, so you can use very custom shaped sections there, or beam elements I should say, custom shaped beams. We're going to be mostly focusing on areas and volumes here in this video. Creating an area is kind of like creating a sketch in a CAD program, where you can have key points and lines and then fill those lines to create an area. So if you had a really custom set of lines and maybe that had some funny shape, and you filled those lines, you can make a custom area and then extrude that area, or you have these preset areas that you can make. So arbitrary is where you say by lines, and then you can click a bunch of lines that make a 2D surface and make make an area that fills those lines, I guess. There's also preset ones like a rectangle. You buy 2 corners, you can specify I want this corner to be at the origin, and I want it to be 5 high or 5 wide and 10 tall. There you go, there's a rectangle. If you want to make a circle, there's again multiple options. A solid circle, a part of a circle, or an annulus is like a donut shape. But again, like with a rectangle, you can specify it. You can say I want to by 2 corners. You can do by dimensions with a rectangle, or you can say I want it to the x direction, this should start at 5 and go to 10, and it should start at 10 and go to 15. So just to see that here, there we go. It started at 5 in the x direction and it stopped at 10, and the y direction it started at 10 and stopped at 15. So multiple options there. And then a circle, I'm just going to go with a solid circle. You pick basically an origin and a radius for your circle. So I'm going to put mine in the middle of my first rectangle here. So 2.5 in the x and 5 in the y. And there's my circle, so I've got a rectangle on top of a circle. Now let's say I wanted to subtract or kind of cut. That's kind of like in a CAD model you would extrude, and so you would say cut instead of add. But what we're going to do here to make it simple is we're going to still work in our 2D space, kind of a sketch here, and we're going to remove that circle from the rectangle area. So our area that we have left is a rectangle with a hole cut in it. So that's under modeling operate. So if you ever want to extrude something, you want to add, subtract, divide, that kind of a thing, that's under operate. I'll cover extrude in a little bit, but booleans is where we go to subtract. So we're going to cut this circle out of the square or the rectangle. So we're going to subtract areas here. So modeling and operate booleans, subtract areas. So there's a key thing to remember about this menu. The first thing you select is the one you want to keep, is the area you want to keep. So I'm going to select this rectangle here, and it's probably going to tell me that. So right now I'm holding my left click mouse down. I'm holding down the left mouse and I'm dragging around so I can go between different areas. But I'm going to let go here, and it's going to say there are 2 areas of this location. I can see that one is the circle and one is the rectangle. So I'll hit OK because I want to keep the rectangle, and then I'll select again. And there I've got my circle, but I'm not sure. So another key thing to remember for selecting areas of volumes, if I right click, Notice how my selection arrow goes upside down. That is a deselect. So if I right click again, that goes back to the selection arrow. So deselect and my selection arrow. So I'm going to restart that to clear it up. So first I'm going to select the one I want to keep. I'm going to hit OK. So once you've got the one you select you want to keep, you hit OK on this main menu here. So pick the one you want to select, hit OK on this main subtract areas menu. Then it's going to open up the menu again. Now you select the materials or the areas you want to cut away. So I'm going to select this rectangle. I'm going to go next to get the circle. Then I'm going to hit OK on this main menu, and that finishes the job. So that's subtracting. So let's say I wanted to turn this 2D area into a volume. I could go to actually extrude, and I can extrude this area about normal, about an axis or a line that I've drawn earlier. So a lot of kind of similar options we have in CAD. But I'm going to extrude it along a normal. That would basically turn this shape, and if this one I wanted to, into a volume. So that's simple enough. You pick the volume, or you pick the area, and you give it a depth to extrude to. But I'm going to do something a little more complex. I'm going to extrude about a line. So what that does is actually rotate. So in a CAD program, I apologize for that. So the proper command for this was actually extrude an area about an axis, not along lines. So I'll select about an axis. And I'm going to select the area that I want to extrude. So this guy here, I'll hit OK on this main menu. And I'm going to select two key points that create the axis that I want to extrude around. Again, it's basically like a sweep in a CAD program. So if I select this key point and this key point here, I've got a line, and I hit OK. It's going to bring up this. It says, how far do you want to sweep? I'm going to say 90 degrees. I hit OK, and there I have it on the positive x-axis, or around the positive y-axis, so towards me. But we can see the shape got extruded or swept 90 degrees about that central axis or line. So that's about all you need for turning a 2D area into a volume. If you want to go straight to creating a volume, you can always go to Modeling, Create Volumes, and then you've got, you can create a block, which is a rectangular prism. Again, you've got multiple ways to input it, so you can select two corners for your 2D plane, and then you've got, and then it says ANSYS, so you define two corners to create your 2D plane and a Z direction to extrude it along, by dimensions there again. You can create a cylinder, solid, hollow, partials, spheres and cones, all kinds of things like that to play with. They're pretty self-explanatory as to how you input them, so you can go ahead and play around with that if you like. That is pretty much all we have for creating 3D geometry in ANSYS, so thank you very much for watching.